So that brings us to step 3. Once we have some better political allies on the city council, and once we have some better folks on the retirement board, we can start pushing this conversation about filling vacancies and improving the active to retiree ratio. Because we know that that's one of the biggest things impacting your investment returns on the retirement fund. So we talked about this a little bit in the first presentation, but I just wanted to recap it. Having a high ratio of retirees to actives means that that your assets in your fund are going to be invested more conservatively, because there's more because more benefits have to be paid out soon. So they're not going to put them in high risk, potential high reward investment portfolios. So that means a lower rate of return overall. Obviously we care about that because we care about the sustainability of the pension, but I think the most important thing here is that if we have a low number of active employees, that means that we have a high number of vacancies. That means that there are fewer public services being provided. So I showed this chart last time from your actuarial valuation for your pension fund, and I wanted to show it again, but talk about it in a different way. So in the dark blue here, those are the number of tier 1 active employees currently paying into the pension fund. This light blue here, that's tier 2 active employees, and you see it grows over time as more tier 2 folks are hired. And then the green is your in-pay status, that's your retirees. Your ratio right now is that you have 1.2 retirees for every active employee. When you look at how this compares in 2017, that's the most recent data we have, to 2005, what we're seeing is a loss of 738 active employees paying into the pension fund. That's a loss of 738 public sector jobs compared to pre-recession levels. This is what austerity looks like in practice. And I know that this has been the case for a lot of overall across the board, there's been a lack of investment in public services. But I wanted to go back to that Stanford study that I showed you earlier to show that this is uniquely bad in San Jose. Again, this is a group of peer funds. You have some in the Bay Area like Contra Costa, Alameda County, but you also have some funds like Dallas and DC. And this is showing in the red, that's the number of, the rate of change in number of active members from 2006 to 2016. In blue, that's the rate of change for retirees. So your fund is right here. You have, the red is is how your rate of active members has changed. You've had a decrease of 25% in active members paying into the fund. That is the largest decrease out of any of the peer funds. An active employee loss of 25%. Some of these funds have had increases, but some of them have had, there's a few here, some of the other Bay Area funds have had decreases, but nothing nearly as dramatic as 25%. So if we're going to try to fight to fill some of these vacancies and make up for some of this job loss, we need to identify where these jobs are that have disappeared over time. We need to find out what departments are getting defunded. We need to support leadership in the union in the departments that are most affected and try to get them on some labor management committee meetings to talk about filling these vacancies. But that brings us into step 4 too, which is that if we're going to, part of resolving this problem is going to be improving funding for public services. And part of that is revenue measures at the local level, and also we're going to talk about a potential state level measure. One thing that other cities in the Bay have done way better than us in San Jose is taking revenue measures to the voters. I wanted to give just like a recap of what happened this November, because it was an amazing year for revenue measures. You're definitely not going to be able to read this at home, but this is a list of all revenue measures for cities across the Bay Area, and I didn't even include cannabis revenue measures here. This is just other types of revenue measures. Even when you include cannabis measures, every single revenue measure that went to the ballot this year passed. Every single one. San Francisco passed an increase to their business taxes that's going to bring in $300 million in revenue, new revenue annually. And I know that we're used to thinking like, okay, we're not San Francisco, things are a little different in San Jose, but Mountain View is on here. Mountain View increased their business tax. Sunnyvale is on here. They increased their hotel tax. Palo Alto is on here. So this is something that voters everywhere across the Bay overwhelmingly approved of, and it's because people are really starting to notice that public services have been on a starvation diet for a long time and that it is not working. So I wanted to talk about what happened in San Francisco because I think this can be a roadmap for us. I know that things are a little different here, but what they did here shows the kind of things we can do if we're willing to put in the work and have a little bit of imagination. So the Our City, Our Home tax, what it does is it's going to increase taxes on businesses with over $50 million in gross receipts. Gross receipts, just like roughly, it means revenue. So if you have over $50 million in revenue in the city of San Francisco, your taxes are going to go up a little bit. Which, mind you, these businesses also just got a massive tax break from the Trump tax cuts. So this is nothing. This is a drop in the bucket compared to the windfall that they're getting. What this is going to mean for the city, on the other hand, is $300 million in additional tax revenue. Plus, the measure secures existing funding for homelessness services and affordable housing. So the reason they did that was because they wanted to make sure that the city wasn't going to say, hey, great, we have $300 million in new tax revenue coming in. We're just going to replace the existing funding that you were already getting for these public services and use that money for something else. One thing that's really crucial here is that the Our City, Our Home tax didn't start with city council, or it's San Francisco, so it's the Board of Supervisors since they're also a county. They went straight to the voters and got enough signatures to get this thing on the ballot. One of the things that they did in order to build that broad coalition of support that they needed to make this thing happen was that they included language in here promising that the money would go towards specific things that voters really want to see that money go towards. 50% of it will go towards affordable housing. 25% of it will go towards mental health and addiction services. 15% will go towards prevention. 10% will go towards clean streets, bathrooms and shelters. And there's also an oversight committee that will be overseeing the funds. So they collected the signatures that they needed to get the thing on the ballot, which of course you had to have pretty broad support among potential voters to do that. And then they also started lining up a big political coalition. So you had folks, Jackie Spear on board with it, Nancy Pelosi, Assemblymember Phil Ting, Mark Leno. So they built this really strong coalition of folks saying that this city needs this, and that this is something that's fair. But one thing, I don't want to make it seem like this was all super easy. The mayor actually came out against this. But the reason that they were able to build this coalition, that they were able to even get here in the first place, is because they ran a really strong ground game. They had a coalition of community groups going out and knocking on doors, going to farmers markets, engaging with voters and talking about what this tax would actually mean. They had other elected officials at the local level that were talking about it while they were campaigning. And ultimately it passed with overwhelming support. So I think it gives us a sense of what can really be possible.